If I believe there's a reason for this pain I'm going through, if I believe that leaving me was all that you could do, if I believe that I can feel you by my side, I'll make it through the night. If I believe that time will teach me how to find my way, if I believe that broken hearts grow stronger every day, if I believe that now you're dancing across the sky, I just might get by. If I believe that memories won't always hurt this much, if I believe that I will see your face again, I can wait till then. If I believe I'll hold you in my arms again, I can wait. I know that I can wait. I can wait till then. I can wait till then.
Hello, my name is Joanne Revicchio, and welcome to the Somerville Overcoming Addiction show. Tonight's guest is one of my favorites, Dina Favreau. I love your girlfriend.
I love you too.
And I'm so glad you came.
I'm glad to be here, and Joanne's one of my favorites too, so hopefully we'll have a good show.
Well, we will. I can guarantee you that. First of all, I wanted to do a moment of silence for Carmen's son, Michael.
Absolutely.
Thursday morning on my way down to Washington, we got a phone call saying that one of our friends that actually works really, really hard in the Cape Cod area to help people, and all the different support groups that she's a part of, lost her son. The struggle was hard and it was long, and now she's one of us.
Yeah.
It's really, really sad. So, Michael, rest in peace. And I love you, girlfriend. I hope that if there's something that I could do for you, please let me know. Love you, Carmen. The one thing, as you can see in the back of the logo, it says Heroin, you can't really see it, is killing my town. That Dina is the executive director for that program, and it's nationwide.
Yeah, it's a national nonprofit based. It was actually started in Billerica, Mass. It was only meant to address what was happening in Billerica when the epidemic hit, and it went viral pretty much overnight. So we are now a national nonprofit, and we provide peer recovery support services primarily in Massachusetts, but we do help people in other states as well.
How many members do you have?
We have over 100,000 now.
Wow, imagine that.
Yeah, it's grown quite a bit. It's gone through a lot of growing pains and changes, but
It still exists, 100,000.
Still going strong, and helping lots of people, and breaking the barriers, breaking the stigma, all that stuff that you and I have been working so hard for so long to do.
Yeah, it's just taken too long to do.
Too long.
You know, the roller coaster ride that we go through every day with, you know, we worry about our children till this day, no matter what, you know, and we try to help others. Unfortunately, we can help the parent to try to lessen their pain, but unless the child wants recovery, there's nothing we can really do for them. They have to be the ones to want it.
So one thing that we do is we try to meet everybody where they're at and support them from there. You know, some parents are still in denial, some are still enabling, some are a little bit past that and looking for ways to interrupt the progression of the disease, and you know, that's where our advocacy around Section 35 comes in. And you know, some people are just completely new to this and have no experience or education or background in it, and you know, we start them from scratch, and you know, just support them as they go, because it is a process.
Definitely,
as you know.
definitely.
Yeah.
No, it was good. I mean, when you came on the show, you talked about Section 35, and I thought it was so great that you had this pamphlet, actually this whole 3 or 4 page document talking about Section 35, and that you have, what, 3 days after you?
Well, at the time, we only had 72 hours. The law has changed since then.
Okay.
So one of the things I noticed early on was that a lot of parents didn't know about Section 35. And I guess as luck would have it, I found out in college, when I was training to become a paralegal, there was a whole segment on that law. And so I knew about it. And so when I first found out that my son was using heroin, I automatically, that was the first thing I did. I went straight to the court and I put him into treatment. But a lot of parents that are just finding out that their children need help don't know that that law exists, and a lot of them are afraid to use it for any variety of reasons. But I did have a lot of people reaching out asking me, well, how do I do it? I've tried to do it before and it didn't work, and you know, the judge didn't order my child to go into custody, and I don't understand why, and that sort of thing. And so I took my legal training and background and put together pretty much a cheat sheet, because you know, the courts are inundated with all of these families that are seeking help, and the best way to go about doing that is to write it in a legal style that, you know, pretty much checks off each box that they need to check off on their end. And if you make it simple for them, then it's really hard for them to deny a request for a Section 35. So that's what I did.
I remember, I didn't know you at the time, and I met you after Frankie was gone. He had asked me to section him, because at the time the insurance companies would not take him in any longer because he used his quota or whatever it was for that year. So he asked me if I would section him. So I called up a person that worked at the Cahill Hospital that was a nurse at the time, and I asked him, and he talked about 12.
Section 12.
Section 12, and he also talks about Section 35. Yeah. So I actually went through my friend Charlie to find out how to go about sectioning Frankie. And then I went in to the clinician at the time and spoke to him, and I said he's willing to go. So Frankie was, you know, and that's at the time that they said, well, you know, he was sectioned. They did section him. Um, but they said, you know, it's up, even though we're sending him for services, he may not be there for 28 days.
Oh, yeah.
He may only be there as long as the doctor sees.
Or the superintendent.
Or the superintendent.
Yeah.
So, because the judge does not have a PhD, he's not a doctor.
Well, so the way the law, it's actually not, that's not really why that's not why that happens. The way the law is written, there's a caveat in the language of the law for Section 35 itself that says it's at the discharge is at the discretion of the clinician or the superintendent when they use the word superintendent, they're referencing when they get placed at a Department of Corrections facility versus an actual treatment facility. And a lot of the times, that I call it a loophole because that is what it is. It's a loophole in the law. The discretion of the superintendent or the attending physician is that they're overpopulated and they need the bed. So my son, when he relapsed in 2016, I sectioned him, and it was January, and he was sent to Massac, and that was the same day that that young gentleman died in the van. And he actually was released on the 9th day, and I ended up raising holy hell at Bridgewater because the minimum amount of time that they should do under Section 35 is 30 days. As we know, as parents who've done this, they usually get discharged on the 21st day. But because of all of the media coverage and stuff that was happening with reporting of that young man's death, overdose death in the back of the van, they discharged everybody all at once. It didn't matter how long they were there. So my son was discharged out on the 9th day, and I got a call 2 hours before he was being discharged, giving me a heads up that they were letting him go. And I called Charlie Baker's office, and I called every single person. I called Mary Lou Sutters. I raised hell. I did, and I don't know if I can say that on the show. Sorry.
Yeah, you can.
And it didn't make a difference. He was released, and he relapsed in the parking lot. So we were back on the cycle. Luckily, I can say that he just celebrated 3 years clean April 1st. So
I'm thankful for that.
So he ended up going back out for a few weeks, and mid-March, he realized that he needed treatment, and he went willingly. So
that's really good to know.
Yeah, so he left. He went to out-of-state treatment in Florida at Amethyst Recovery, and he has done really well ever since. So, it's a process, and any family that's just starting down this road, keep your faith, keep your hope. It's a roller coaster ride, but recovery does happen, and there are people out here like us, Joanne and I, and a bunch of other moms and dads and family members, fighting and advocating for increased services, increased beds, changes to the laws. So that was one of the changes to the Section 35 law. It went from you had 24 hours to present your loved one to the court in order for them to have the hearing. They've increased that to 5 business days. So
very well. And you don't have to be.
And you don't have to be in the same district or jurisdiction as the court. Before, you had to be, like, I live in Billerica, so I had to go to Lowell District Court. It's not like that anymore. I could go to any court in the state and petition the court for a Section 35, and they'll go get them.
Well, that's good that it's increased to 5 days. A lot of people don't know that. So now you know that you can be anywhere in the state and go in section, like say you were away and you found out that your child was, and you wanted to have him sectioned. You could actually, like going down the Cape.
Right,
Weekend,
exactly, yeah.
And your child's up at home and you know that he needs services or she needs services, so that's good to know.
Yeah. So there have been a lot of good changes. One thing that's still on the horizon that they are working on in the legislature is that the men are still being sent to Department of Correction facilities, which doesn't respond to substance use disorder appropriately, and it's just more of a housing situation. Of course, you know, that's if they're a danger to themselves or others, which is the qualifier for seeking a Section 35, you know, that was always a no-brainer for me. I know that it's a difficult decision for some people, but to me, I always thought, you know, either I section or I plan a funeral. It was one or the other in my mind. There was really no gray area, you know, it was black or white for me. So, but I understand that other parents struggle with that, and you know, just know that it's at least an option on the table if the need ever arises.
Section 35, I think, I've helped people section their children. It seems to be a little bit easier because now with the epidemic and all the media and everything else, it's like a lot of the judges are going with the Section 35.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I know a lot of people say, I went all the way to court and everything, and they didn't take her, or they didn't take her.
Right. There was a lot of that in late 2015 and most of 2016. There were a lot of parents that were starting to learn about the Section 35 law, and they, you know, were leaving the courts devastated that, you know, they just went in there begging to save their kid's life, and the judge didn't order the order of apprehension. And that's when people started contacting me, and I advocated very heavily for it. And a lot of that actually stemmed on Cape Cod. Cape Cod was notoriously refusing to issue a Section 35, and we actually sent the news down there, so things changed.
No, I remember you were down there.
Yep.
The thing is that there were a lot of overdoses happening in that area.
Right, yeah.
And again, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and addiction, it takes anyone's life. Even billionaires have lost their children, and there's nothing money could do for them.
No. There's no social, economic, any kind of barrier that this disease doesn't touch. It doesn't matter.
No.
What do they say?
It's not discriminate.
Park bench to Park Avenue or something like that, or
That's a good,
something to that effect. There's a saying that they say.
It is true. But anyway, I just want to touch base on what happened on Thursday. Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, I boarded a bus,
Yes.
and 21 mothers and fathers went down to Washington, D.C. It was a 12-hour bus ride down. You know, by the time we got there, we had some dinner, and then before you know it, went to bed. Because the next morning, we were going to be rallying at the Hubert Humphrey Federal Building, which is where...
HHS.
Yeah. And it was remarkable.
Yeah, you guys did a great job.
Yeah, but I had no idea because they kept it hush-hush as to all the different groups who knew what they were doing, but they didn't tell... They didn't include... a lot of the in-depth hour, you know, what we were going to be doing. And all of a sudden, Dominic Esposito, as you've seen him on my show before, brought a spoon, an 800-pound spoon, and dropped it right out in front of...
the FDA.
Yeah,
right?
the FDA. And we were chanting, you know, hey, FDA, why are you killing America today?
Yeah.
And... something has to be done right away.
Right.
So we were doing that, and...
Remember when we went down to D.C. in 2015, we did the same thing at the Fat App rally.
We said our children.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was great because that guy actually left the stage and was not allowed to speak. We wouldn't allow him to do that.
That's right, yeah.
And since then, how many more opioids have been made?
They've passed quite a few, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
There are all different kinds of pain medications. Why do they always tend to go to the opioid? Because maybe
there's a lot of money, because there's a lot of money to be made. That's why.
That's right, because it's addictive, and they knew it.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, there were individuals laying on the ground with tombstones on there.
Yeah, you guys did a die-in.
Oh my
yeah,
God,
that was
it was
great.
phenomenal.
And it got picked up on national news wires, which is really difficult to do with the opioid epidemic. No matter, you know, how big well, you know, when we were in DC in 2015, there were over
Nobody.
60,000 people, and not one news program picked it up.
No articles actually were written or anything. It was like we were non-existent.
Yeah, and there were over 60,000 of us there that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-day event.
Yeah.
You know, you'd think that would face the addiction and fed up, that there would be some indication. I mean, we had a lot of people from Massachusetts there, between Governor Weld and Mackey.
Yeah, they were in the speaker
Kennedys.
lineup.
It was
Speaker
Patrick
lineup.
Kennedy was there.
Yeah, there were a lot of big name speakers, and it didn't get picked up on one national news program.
And then we had James Tyler. We had I'm sorry, I always say James Tyler when it was Steven Tyler there.
Tyler.
You know, and he performed, but they actually weren't talking about their recovery at that point.
No, I think Steven Tyler had just come out about it.
Right.
Like more vocally, but not as much as he is now. Like
Oh,
now.
definitely. Jamie's got a gun, and now that's why he has Jamie's house.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it takes.
Right.
You know, the more and more celebrities or whatever it takes for people to realize that there is an epidemic.
Yeah.
And we already lost Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, we're talking about years and years and years ago with the heroin overdoses, and now. You know, now people are coming out and saying, I'm in recovery, or this person died from this drug.
I think it had a lot to do with the I Am Not Anonymous movement. And that's actually, I mean, I've always been an advocate, but before I started doing it regularly through a nonprofit, I would advocate for families and for myself, you know, just on a resident basis. Like I was just a constituent calling or trying to like raise awareness, that sort of thing. And right out of my head, I told you.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You're pretty tired.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? The thing is that Dina's doing so much.
It's a lot.
Now she's been elected in her town of Billerica as what?
I am the chairperson for Billerica Substance Abuse Prevention.
And how many other committees are you on?
A lot.
And you're actually, one of the reasons why I had you come on is let's talk about the lawsuit against Purdue
It's
and
gonna
the
drive me crazy
Sacklers.
that I lost that thought though. Yeah. So I'm also on the Opioid Advisory Council for Attorney General Maura Healey for the Purdue Farmer case. Yes.
Okay, and it's what, how many pages?
It's over 300. Over 300.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot. And you've read it all?
I read the majority of it. It was very difficult to read because, as you know, it goes back over the entire history of the epidemic, and it gets into some pretty pervasive and disgusting details about the marketing practices, and you know, it has the timeline that they were doing this. And of course, as I'm reading it, I'm trying to keep my legal cap on, but I'm thinking like 2006 is when my son got addicted to Oxy, and that's when our lives changed. So I'm reading this document, and it's going through the timeline, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, it's talking about 2006, 2007, 2009 is when when I found out my son was addicted to heroin. And that's when, you know, all of this stuff was happening behind the scenes with them. So it was really, it was very difficult to read. I have to be honest. It brought up a lot of trauma from what our family went through during that time. And I just kept thinking, like, I started writing letters to the governor and my town manager and the chief of police in 2006, and you know, I was just that crazy mom with the bad kids. And now fast forward 13 years later, and you know, here we are. So yeah, so I read most of it.
No, I noticed, because every time you turn around, you would say, I should have
did a blog on it, because I just know, like, there's a lot of legalese and a lot of legal maneuvering that goes into the pleadings, and regular everyday person doesn't understand that whole process. So
That's why I tried to.
I tried to read it, digest it, and kind of like get it out to the public in layman's terms of like, hey, this is what this document says, and this is what they're doing, and I would put screenshots out for people so that and I would explain what that meant and all of that. So
I can't wait to read it. Because I remember the one that was first sent to me with all the black marks through it. I mean, it was like, wasn't it halfway through? Yeah. I mean, half of them, if you took all the stuff out that they wanted removed, you wouldn't have much of a document.
Well, I read the redacted version, and I kind of try to kind of decipher like what was what from what we could and what we couldn't see. And there were a few things that were very surprising to me. But one thing I found amusing, and I probably shouldn't, but I did, because, honestly, I have no compassion for for the Sacklers whatsoever. Excuse me.
Neither do I.
But when we went to the hearing to have the redactions lifted, do you remember the argument that Richard Sackler's attorney was making about health issues, that they didn't want that to be unredacted? Excuse me. And the judge agreed and allowed that part to stay redacted. But when you read the paragraph before it and the paragraph after it, they're talking about that he has a mental illness and he does not want the public to know. So I just found that to be amusing, because their practices have caused so many people to have mental health issues, and here they are trying to cover up the fact that they're having, this board member has mental health issues, but those mental health issues are actually what drove the bad business practices, because he would have these episodes, and I was just at a loss for words for it, and I was just like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, that was
one thing that just stuck out to me, and I know it's like totally off topic from the legal part of it, but it's just the irony of it,
So, I think it was late 1990s when they started to ask you what was your pain level at.
Right. I think it was 1998, 99.
Right. So now, if a lot of people, if they had an addiction, say, well, what's your pain level from 0 to 10? They're going to go to 10.
Of course. Right.
Because they want
They called it the fifth vital sign or something to that effect. And that's when they came out with that little happy, sad face strip, where are you on the spectrum? Mm-hmm. Of course, anybody that is, suffering from addiction, they're going to say that they have the worst pain possible.
Absolutely. Now, when was the OxyContin made?
I think the patent came out, it was in the late 90s.
Okay, so
the first settlement for wrongful death suits that were brought against them was in 2007, and that had already been going on for just about 10 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if my son had an accident in 1990, it was probably 99, mm-hmm. and then he had a 10-year addiction.
Right.
To those lovely pills that the Purdue Pharmaceutical and the Sacklers made, that and 2 years previous, isn't there some documentation in black and white that said that they knew that it was addictive?
They were tracking it. There's actually a map, and I did send a link to the pleadings that include all of the exhibits, and one of the exhibits was a map that they called Zone 0 or something to that effect, and they were literally tracking non-fatal overdoses, fatal overdoses, and increase in crime. And when you look at the Northeast corridor, it's completely black with some dots of red, because I think they were tracking the crime with red and they were tracking the overdoses with black, and it's just one big blob of black in the Northeast, and they knew that as far back as 2006, I believe it was.
But they made no attempt.
No, they actually tried to increase length of time to keep the patients on the medication by lying to the doctor, saying that if they increased the dose and kept them on longer, then they wouldn't show signs of addiction.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's one of the major pieces driving the litigation.
And we've lost over about 400,000 people.
Well, we're losing 70,000 a year, so, and we are in our at least 15th year of the epidemic, close to it.
Isn't it amazing how they say, now I remember in my public health meeting with Somerville, they had said, oh, the numbers are down.
So we're seeing that in Billerica too, but we can't tell, and nobody can tell at this point, whether or not the increased access to Narcan is driving that number. So the overdoses are down, but the fatal overdoses are down, but the regular overdoses, like non-fatal overdoses, are still up. So they're not really sure if the Narcan advocacy is what is driving those numbers to go down. So it could be like a false situation, because the epidemic is still increasing, even though the fatalities are decreasing. More people are still becoming addicted. So that's a wait and see kind of a situation to know how to respond to that.
And the thing is that this medication, I mean, there have been new medications that are not opiates.
Non-narcotics?
Right. So why aren't they using them? Or why are they not, it's like, what if?
Yeah.
What if they stopped? I mean, originally, OxyContin was made for people that were dying of cancer, and that's how it was supposed to be distributed.
Right. Well, then they figured out how much money they could make, and then, that got serviced out to pill mills, which serviced out to the black market. And with the marketing practices and the deceptive practices to the doctors, they, increased the amount of pills that were out flooding the market. And then when people started to die, that they cracked down on that. So then people had to transition over to heroin and street drugs. So
is that your telephone?
it is. I forgot to shut my ringer off.
Huh? You forgot to shut your ringer off? That's
Sorry.
okay.
It'll stop.
We
in a
can still
second.
talk. I thought it was dead.
No,
But
I
anyway.
did too.
She's a very busy woman. But anyway, I look at that, and then specifically, I happen to ask my boss if I could leave early to go over that day, because everybody was standing, well, not everybody, there was quite a few parents that were there with pictures of their lost loved ones. And when I was able to go in up to the courthouse, which was on the 14th floor?
It was up there.
Yeah, it was pretty far up there. I was amazed to see how many lawyers were there for the Sacklers and the Purdue Pharmaceutical. I think there were 5.
There were a lot. There was a whole team. Yeah. I wasn't impressed with them, to be quite honest.
No, I wasn't either. But, I was very impressed by the judge.
Yes, the judge was very stern but fair and legal-minded. That's important, For as much as we want to push for justice for our lost loved ones, we have to really be patient with the legal process, because it can take time to run the course through the different stages of litigation. And I just found her to be inspiring. She inspired hope, because you know, she did talk about the different laws that applied, but she said, you know, they wanted to wait for the multi-district litigation to work its way through the Ohio legal system before releasing all of these redactions. But at the end of the day, the public interest for both the multi-district litigation out of Ohio versus the litigation out of Massachusetts, it's all going to come together at some point, and the documents will be released. So the public interest in those documents outweighed any legal argument or precedent that they had, because eventually the documents would become public either way.
And that's what she said. The
Right.
public had the right to know.
Right, exactly. And yeah, so she was very hope-inspiring. You know, I think that she'll be fair, and I think that we'll have a good outcome for this case. I do.
So now we have Oklahoma.
So Oklahoma. So with all the litigation between Massachusetts and the multi-district litigation that's happening that was fast-tracked on the federal level out in Ohio, has put the Sacklers in a precarious financial situation where they started leaking to the press that they're looking into filing bankruptcy. I don't know, if you're a multi-billionaire, I don't know how you could ever file for bankruptcy, but you know, that's just me. They're looking at their legal options on how to do that. So because of that, Oklahoma was first out of the gate to settle out of court, which I found to be very disappointing, because the people of Oklahoma deserve to have justice for their lost loved ones. And so they basically entered into the same settlement agreement that was entered into in 2007. You know, there's a sunset clause where eventually all of the orders expire, and so, you know, that puts them right back into, you know, 5-7 years from now, they can go right back to those marketing practices, and, you know, we're back at square one. So we had to talk about and think about, like, how does that affect the multi-district litigation, and is this bankruptcy scare that they're trying to use going to cause other states to settle out of court? And so all of the advocates and the people on the council contacted the Attorney General to let them know that the people in Massachusetts don't want to settle. We've already been down that road, and we want justice. We don't want a settlement. A settlement isn't going to stop them from doing this again in the future, because they've already done it in the past and then continue to do it anyway, and it's not going to bring our loved ones back. So
Absolutely not.
So we made it pretty abundantly clear that, you know, Massachusetts people do not want to settle, and she assured us that she will not. She will fight for our justice. So hopefully, you know, she's setting the example for other attorney generals across the country to, you know, stick to the litigation, let the public find out everything that they did that caused this, and, you know, $270 million versus how many lives lost? It's a drop in the bucket to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
4 million.
Yeah.
And you know what?
It's a
And
drop in the bucket. It's a drop in the bucket.
It probably is they're trying to manipulate.
Exactly. So, you know, they're using the possibility for bankruptcy to scare people into settling, and
They're moving their money.
Of course, they've been moving their money, and quite frankly, I'm not afraid of bankruptcy court. Are you?
No.
Good.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, because, you know, they have assets all over the globe. They have assets everywhere. So I think it'll be pretty difficult for them to prove bankruptcy, you know.
True. But like I said, they bought it. So I hope that a lot of the states did not buy into them doing bankruptcy, because there's no way. There is no way. What do they have made? $13 billion? How much do they make a year? There's no way you can.
They have paid themselves hand over fist. So that was a lot. The payouts are actually talked about in the pleadings, and anytime there was a spike in a region and people were investigating, they would pay themselves out, and then they would just move on, to the next.
So nobody should be bought anymore.
No, they've caused enough damage.
Oh, look at us.
Oh yeah, that's from when we went to the premiere of Beautiful Boy, and what was his name? The actor.
Oh,
Steve Carell was there. Yeah.
Yeah, I never get a chance to talk to him. Did you take a picture with him?
No, I stood in line for like 45 minutes, and then somebody cut me, and then he took off, and I was so upset.
That's
and
terrible.
then I was like, what am I doing to this poor human being?
No, it was a nice premiere. It was nice to meet, different people.
Yeah, we met Senator Ed Markey that night.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I actually had met him before at the, Edward M. Kennedy when they had the roundtable discussion.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to meet him that time.
I didn't get a chance to talk to him,
Yeah.
but he seems like a very nice man. I didn't realize he was that tall.
He is very tall. He does a lot. He does do a lot for our state, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet him and thank him for the work that he's done down in D.C. for us.
I remember when he was in D.C., when we were down on the round table, and the first thing he said is, they're not even talking about addiction.
No.
And that was down 2015. That was
2015.
when we came back from D.C., when we all started to meet and try to get, like I said, and I've always said this, if we all work as a team, we can get a lot more done.
Absolutely. Yep.
Than apart.
Right.
And it's great to see what happened when we were in D.C. to have the Spoon Project there.
Yeah.
Ryan Hampton, he was there. Mass and New Hampshire team sharing, but there were people from Virginia there, New York, Pennsylvania. There were quite a few different organizations there to show them that we mean business.
Yeah, I think that I'm really inspired by the Spoon Project because an 800-pound heroin spoon being dropped off at various venues that have a role in creating or exasperating the epidemic has done a lot to raise the exposure on the national level and getting it out onto, like it was all over Times Square. All of the advertising boards in Times Square, they put it up. And then I forget the name of the museum in New York. They, when they did the protest there, where the Sacklers are a big beneficiary to the museum. So that actually made international news when they did the protest there, and they did a couple of protests here in Massachusetts. I know Tufts is on their target list.
How about Friday, everyone?
And Harvard, yes.
Okay, I want everybody to know that at 12 o'clock Friday afternoon, there will be various groups going down to the Shackler Museum, and they're asking Harvard to take the name off of...
It's the March to Harvard. So they're going to start at the museum, and they're going to march up to Harvard because we actually did a letter writing campaign to the president of Harvard requesting that they move the Sackler name from the school, and they replied no. So the parents of loss are coming.
Yeah, no, he blatantly said that he wasn't going to do it. And last week I had 2 students from Tufts.
I think Tufts said they're going to start cutting ties. Or there's another school and another museum that both put out announcements within the last week that they're cutting ties with the Sacklers. So.
Yeah, the students were very upset about it. That quite huge donations have been
huge
made to Tufts. And
the Tufts has an entire curriculum through because of the Sacklers, and that's worrisome.
It worried them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got the chance to watch the show.
I didn't. I did read the article about it, though.
Yeah, you should actually, when it comes time, that you have a few minutes, and I know how busy you are,
I will make time for you.
that they were very, very concerned because here they are. One of them was already a graduate, and the other is graduating in the spring, and she is in the medical field.
Right.
So she was upset with what she was learning and how they were, you know, responsible for this epidemic, and couldn't believe that all this money that the university that she was attending.
They've been allowed to fly under the radar for so long, and now it's coming out in the open. And you know, these prestigious universities and museums are going to be tainted by the Sackler shame, because this litigation is going to be bigger than the tobacco companies when all is said and done. And this is going to be,
They probably will be bankrupt.
I truly believe that this will be history making in our country. It will take time, but I think that, you know, with our Attorney General as, you know, amazing and tenacious and, you know, a fighter that she is, I think that, you know, this will be historic. I do.
It was very nice of her to come out from the courthouse that day, and actually it was freezing out there. And she had her little suit on and had no coat, and she was talking to each and every single one of us that was standing there, and saying that she will not stop.
No, she won't. And you know, not many other prosecutors are willing to go that far, and I believe her when she says she won't stop. I believe her with all my heart. I do.
Yeah, no, I truly respect her for how far she's gone with this already. I mean, how long did it take her to get a 300 and I think it was 21-page document together?
It was a lot. Yeah, and she has an amazing team too. She does. She has an amazing team, and I'm really grateful and honored to be a part of that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you are too.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted you to have you here on the show, and maybe eventually you'll come back on, and we'll talk about, you know, all the steps taken. You know.
Yeah, and we will. And I wish, I know that I've been really busy lately, and I'm not as sharp as I usually am, but I will. I will be the next time. But where it stands right now, the attorneys for the Sacklers have filed a motion to dismiss, and Moore Healy is fighting, and her team is fighting that to the fullest. So, but we do have to take into consideration some of the issues surrounding the Oklahoma settlement and whether or not that may impact Massachusetts. But I don't believe that it will. I think that, you know, she will come out on top, and they won't get their motion to dismiss. I don't think so.
I have complete faith in your
In
your determination.
Pray to God I'm not wrong, because that would be just too devastating to think about.
It would be too devastating for everyone. Yeah. I mean, this should be watched.
Yeah.
Everybody should be watching it, you know,
Absolutely.
and I think that everybody should be sending letters to anybody that they can,
right,
in the political.
So we actually have a letter writing campaign going on right now to the Oversight Committee. Chairman Cummings has requested all of the documentation from Purdue Pharma. And so we put together a form letter, which, you know, it has the address blocks and what we're writing to them about, and then the body of it, any person, it's completely editable, so you can write in your entire story of how the opioid epidemic has impacted you. And we're going to have that going on for until the 11th. So if anybody wants to send their story into the Oversight Committee in DC, feel free to download that letter and email it to the email address on the Post, and we're going to print out all those letters and send them to Chairman Cummings and make sure that any documentation that they receive through the subpoena process of the Oversight Committee and any hearings are made public.
And how would I get that letter?
You can go. You can go on Heroin is Kill My Town's Facebook page. It's one of the posts in any of the support groups. So I know that it's been shared in Team Sharing Inc. It's been shared in Someone's Child Helping Hands. I'm pretty sure it's been shared in Magnolia, New Beginnings. So it's out there. And if you can't find it, you can feel free to message the page, and either myself or somebody on the team will send you a copy with the email address to send it to.
Mm-hmm. Good, because I obviously didn't get one.
You didn't see it?
No.
Okay, I'll
But
send
I
it
will.
to you.
You send it to me, and I'll send it and put it on some of Overcoming Addictions page.
Yeah.
So
So we're just going to keep that active. We're going to send the first batch of letters, which I think we got somewhere around 28 letters in the last week or so. I really was hoping that we would have gotten a better response, but you know, it sometimes takes a minute to build the momentum. But we're just going to, every time a batch of letters come in, we're going to print them out and send them to Washington and make sure that these family stories are being heard by the people and leadership in DC.
So I'll get right on it.
All right.
And maybe I can, the thing is that the next article that I won't be out there until the 15th.
That's okay. I'm going to keep it active. I just want to get the first, they were given a due date of, Purdue was given a due date of April 4th to produce their first batch of documents. So I wanted to give them a little bit of time to get their documents in, and then I wanted to hit the committee with all the family stories. So, you know, if it's after the 15th, that's not a problem. We will still send it.
Okay, then I'll make sure that I put that in my article so that parents will know, send it anyway.
Right. Right.
You know? Because it is important for all of us to tell our stories. Mm-hmm. We've lost our children. There's no bringing them back. And we should have these people be responsible for their deaths. You know, they had opioids out there, and they're still making opioids, and doctors are still giving prescriptions out for opioids. So let's try to get them off the market.
Right. Well, there's a big push, and there's a lot has changed, but they are still approving patents. One of the most notorious thing that the Purdue pharma tried to do was they created this epidemic, and then they tried to corner the market for the cure for Suboxone and Narcan, and profit off of that as well. So, you know, they
should give back to the community.
It should be for free. Yeah, they should be paying for treatment for free.
Yep, for treatment. Yeah. They should be paying for those cures by giving out the free medication.
Well, there's so many moving parts to the epidemic that, you know, where do you start? Where do you end? You know, we have the people who are currently addicted. What about the babies being born with neonatal syndrome, and, you know, kids in foster care that have lost their parents to overdose and there's no other family to take them? You know, there's so many aspects that you have to take into consideration, and that's what makes it so difficult to put a dollar. To me, there's no amount of money in the world that will make it okay for what they did. But at the same time, the only way to really, unless there's a criminal indictment, which I hope someday there will be, but the only way to, you know, really offset the damages is by trying to find an amount of money to compensate for what they did. But what that figure is, I don't know, because I just think that
I can't put a dollar amount on my son's life.
And that was one of the first things I said at the beginning of being on the advisory council. I said, you know, there's no way I could ever envision saying that any amount of money is acceptable, because what's a life worth? You know, it's priceless. And, you know, not only those who have died of overdose, what about, like I said, the children that are growing up without their parents, and they'll never have the benefit of the love, or more importantly, they'll never have the benefit of the financial support that their parents would have provided for. And, you know, once they age out of the system, I mean, I was a kid, I grew up in foster care. That's the most difficult transition that any young adult can go through. And, you know, there's just, this opioid epidemic is going to have significant residual impact for decades to come.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As we know, I don't even know if the figures have gone up, but there's 35,000 grandparents raising their grandchildren here in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Alone.
Yeah.
And these children will never know.
Oh, no,
their children will never know their grandparent.
Yeah, when I lost my niece Julia in 2016, she left behind her 20-month-old daughter, who's my godchild. Ariana will never, ever know her mother. She was, you know, separated from her mom after she relapsed. I think she relapsed when Ariana was 14 months old. So she'll never, ever know her mother except through pictures and the videos that I play for her. You
Absolutely.
know? And it's just sad. It's just like, it's devastating.
Do you know we only have a minute left?
Really?
You've done a great job.
Thanks. So did you.
No. You had all the information that I know that I needed to get. And I'm very, like I said, I'm very happy that they have you on that panel because, first of all, being a paralegal, having that background, you'll know how to read the document and get the full, you know, understanding. And for someone like myself, I could be there forever trying to figure out what that sentence means.
Well, sometimes I'm there forever too. So, but no, I know I'm, you know, even if I wasn't on the advisory council, I would still be doing what I do and helping other people to understand.
I know you would. I've never met a more stronger woman than you.
Oh, thank you.
And don't ever say no to Dina.
Don't say that.
No, I know. What I'm saying is that you're strong and you're willing to fight for people.
I will, yeah.
You know, and I appreciate that. You know, I appreciate everything you've ever done for me.
I appreciate you, Joanne. You've done a lot for me too, you know.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're still on YouTube, so I'm going to have him shut it off.
Good night, YouTube.
Yeah. YouTube. I hope it was a very, you better find out who that call was from.
Oh, I'm
thought
sure.
they were gonna call
I know
again.
I know who it was from. It was from my son. So we have an accountability plan for getting him back on track. So
That's good.
yeah.